I'd like to give a thank you to WD-40 brand for sponsoring this video. Hey everybody, it's Ryan. Welcome back to How Farms Work. I'm gonna get the truck ready to take the rest of my corn out to Dyersville to the ethanol plant. Now, the small feed bin here at the main farm, I estimate, has roughly 15 to 1600 bushels worth of corn in it. I like to figure low because, you know, more bushels is always better, right? And before we head out there, I want to go around the truck and make sure that the truck is ready to go. It's been sitting for a while, so I'm going to cover a few things. I'm going to go through and grease everything on the rear end of the trailer and the drive end of the truck, which there's a few places that need them. The S-cam shafts, the slack adjusters here need to be greased. Just those two spots for the brakes need to be greased. I'm going to go ahead and unhook this. I'm going to go ahead and grease the traps as well. It's been a long time since I've put anything on those. The very last trip I took down, the back hopper did not want to open and I had to stand on the handle. It's not very fun. Landing gear down. Hose is disconnected. Electrical line disconnected. We got the fifth wheel not yet pulled. Go ahead and stick it on that latch there and yank. So you can tell by the bolt that comes out of the front of the fifth wheel, we are successfully unlatched. I went through and I greased all the slack adjusters, the S-cam shafts, the U-joints, and the drive shafts. So the truck itself is good for being greased. I went and put a few dabs of grease on the fifth wheel face here, only on the spots where it was really dry. I was trying to figure out the best way to lube your fifth wheel jaws, and some guys online were saying, you know, you shouldn't bother greasing the fifth wheel jaws because they can get filled with dry grease, which they do. I pulled a bunch out there and I cleaned it off with a towel, and that just doesn't sit well with me, not greasing the jaws at all, because according to the place that I read, that the grease will come off the fifth wheel plate and lube up the jaws. Personally, I feel like that's not enough, because just looking, you can see the metal just kind of chipping out there. But another thing I also found is that this is a rebuild kit, a Holland fifth wheel plate for this tractor. Now, silly me being, you know, the amateur new truck driver that I am, even though I've been doing it for a couple of years, I guess, but always learning. When I got this, I assumed that they had it adjusted right from where they put it on down at Truck Country, but personally I feel like they didn't adjust it at all, because it seemed like the jaws were locking very, very tight and weren't allowing the trailer to freely spin. So I went through and I looked up the service manual for how to adjust it, which you do with this bolt on the front here. This actually goes in when the jaws clamp. This rubber washer on the front here is supposed to be snug but not loose when you have it hooked up to the trailer. There's actually a tool that you're supposed to use to do it, but it just seemed like it wasn't set up right, and it's been running a lot better now, I think. So instead of greasing up the jaws like I usually do with the grease gun, someone mentioned that I should use white lithium grease, which is why I have this can of WD-40 Specialist white lithium grease here. And some of the purposes that you're supposed to use it for are like auto hinges, which this is an auto hinge technically. Gears, sprockets, outdoor hinges, latches, overhead door tracks, pulleys, cables, and guide rails. So I'm thinking we use this white lithium grease instead. That I'm kind of banking on it not clumping up and drying out nearly as bad as the regular grease does. I think this will do a lot better job, because we have used this stuff in the past, and it does a really good job on things like the door tracks as well. So we're going to go ahead and spray this in there to lube it up. Seems like a pretty good amount to me. I'm also going to spray it on the kingpin here. I also clean this off with the cloth. Yeah, it's like setting up immediately. Now, an area that frequently gets neglected on people's trucks and I can't say that I've kept up the best with greasing it on this one, is underneath the fifth wheel plate. So underneath where the fifth wheel jaws are, where they come around and clamp together to hold the trailer kingpin in place, all the latches and all the pins that move in there to make everything function need to be greased. And WD-40 Specialist white lithium grease is definitely one of the best options to use, because especially with the spray tip on it, it allows you to get up underneath the fifth wheel plate and spray all those little pins and pivoting points to make sure that all of those stay well lubed, because if they don't, you could have issues like backing up underneath the trailer if the fifth wheel jaws build up with grease, which you want to make sure you also clean out regularly. What can happen is that the jaws won't clamp around the trailer, which is one of the reasons they tell you to always make sure you get out and make sure that the trailer's hooked up. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this underneath the fifth wheel plate. So there's our air cylinder for the sliding fifth wheel. Completely lubricated that. This is also a pin that it pivots on. Well, that's some handy stuff to keep around. Now we've got all of our pivot points underneath the fifth wheel plate all lubed up, and we can hook up the trailer. Anyway, the truck is ready to go now, and hopefully I can start hauling some corn tomorrow. I decided that now is probably a good time for me to haul out the rest of my corn in this small bin here on the farm. The steers are all gone, so we don't need the feed anymore, and corn price is sitting around $8, which will be the highest priced corn that I've ever sold, so I think I'd be pretty happy with it. But we're loading up Big Red right now. We're gonna go out to the ethanol plant in Dyersville and drop this corn off, since they do have a higher positive basis out in Dyersville compared to Dubuque. So for my own stuff, it makes sense to take it out to Dyersville. Whereas, you know, it's twice the distance, twice the time, but I only have roughly, I think, 1,400 to 1,500 bushels in the bin. So we're gonna take this load out today. I have my CDL test in 2 days, which I'm kind of nervous for, which I really shouldn't be. I'm not thinking that I'm gonna pass it, but you know, I'm hoping that I'm gonna be delightfully surprised. I've been studying, so hopefully it goes well. But we got the 4020 hooked up to the new Westfield 73-foot auger, and we're hauling out corn, so should be a pretty slow day. We have been talking about cutting hay, but they've been talking about rain off and on. If we had cut it right after we quit planting, then we probably would have been fine, but the thing is, we had to switch everything over. Travis did like 1 acre of replant across the road because we had a little bit of emergence problems across the road, but the beans came up pretty good yet, so we wanted to make sure that we didn't need to replant anything else before we unhooked everything, which is why we didn't, you know, switch over to cutting hay right away. But we're gonna be probably starting with maybe some waterways or that pasture out at my place to get something cut. I need to get the rest of my cows out to pasture because I'm still feeding them, and now it's June. Let's see how this is coming along. Dad and I got the small bin completely empty last night. We took a load down yesterday, and I decided to split the loads 50-50 because I was figuring there'd be about 1,500 bushels. So yesterday, for the load that we took down to Dyersville, I tried for 750 bushels and I got 760 on. So we put the rest on this load, which it looks like there's a little bit more. So fingers crossed that there is, you know, roughly 1,600 maybe bushels that we've got on total. And we're heading down to Dyersville now. It's roughly an hour drive. And today I'm going to practice my double clutching, I guess, and see how well that goes. I've been practicing quite a bit trying to get my double clutching down, but at this point, I asked the tester, since I'm taking my CDL test tomorrow, if I had a double clutch, and he's like, "Yes, you do." I'm like, "Okay, but is it a failure?" is what I'm asking. I think that you should know how to double clutch, which is why I'm giving it a solid rock hard effort to actually learn how to do it properly. And you know, I'm making progress, but as far as taking the test tomorrow, I'm thinking that I probably won't double clutch for the most part. Maybe on the upshifts, but between ranges, it's really rough trying to double clutch between the range shifts. So I don't know. The truck just shifts differently. I'm not used to it yet. Haven't caught on. Don't know. But I'll keep giving it a shot as we go out there. I'm about to head out to Dyersville now. This corn is going out to the ethanol plant to be made into ethanol. Let's get her rolling. The other thing that I'm really struggling with is keeping both hands on the wheel. I have a tendency to leave my hand on the shifter just because I've been in situations after, you know, driving the truck now for the last few years. I've been in situations where it's, to me, a lot better to have your hand on the shifter all the time. Because there have been situations where I popped over a hill. There was one time in particular that I'm thinking of where I popped up over a hill and there was someone walking right in front of me. And yeah, you can rely on the brakes to get you fully stopped, but I feel like I have more control of the truck when my hand's on the shift lever rather than when they're both on the wheel, and then I have to slam my hand back down to the knob real quick to try to, you know, start shifting gears. Well, you move your hand fast like that and you can pretty easily miss the shift knob, and then you start feeling around for it, and then you start making your shifts. So not saying that I'm in the right, you know, saying that you should have your hand on the shift lever all the time or anything, but I think it should be a matter of preference. They say that, you know, it's not good. You always have more control having your hands on the wheel. I get that, but just my own personal opinion or take on it. I don't know if I caught it or not, but my nephew is playing in someone's driveway there where he gets babysat, and you know, when I see him outside, I usually try to wave or say, "Hey, Jack." I honk the air horn. He probably peed himself. Sorry, Alicia. Well, I'm gonna give double clutching on the downshifts a shot now. So now I'm in 9th gear. This truck has a Super 10 Eaton transmission in it, so you really only have to double clutch half the time as you normally would. So we're in 9th right now. Engine RPMs are sitting around 1200, so I can begin my shift down into 8th, pre-select gear, clutch out, clutch in. That one's super easy because, well, I've got a load on. The truck shifts a lot better, a lot easier when you have a load on compared to when you're unloaded, which is another difficulty that I'm gonna have tomorrow. So now we're in 7th, 8th. We're in 8th. Might have to shift down one more time. Yep, we're at about 1100 RPM, so I just pre-selected the gear. As soon as I let off the accelerator, it's gonna shift into the next lower gear, and all I have to do is just push the accelerator back in, so it broke the torque and allowed the truck to shift. So now we're in 8th, we're gonna shift to 9th. Clutch out, clutch in. Need to let off the accelerator a little bit sooner there. Big River United Energy. As of today, they have a 20-cent positive basis, whereas the river, where we normally haul our grain to, has a 0 basis. Both of which are better than negative, but you don't see positive all that often, at least around here. Got my handy-dandy little card here. Truck red. But did it scan me? There it goes. I had to hold the card outside the window. Sample taken. Please proceed to scale. Alright. Oh, 75,000, more than I thought, which I'm good with. There we go. Mr. Ryan. Now this building up here on our left is for cooling. Dad said that they run water over those panels on the side. Cool things down. So I was driving by here one day and I was like, what the heck is that sound? And it's water pouring down over the side of those panels on the side of the building. It's kind of cool. They're loading out DDGs next to us. Smells fantastic. Must be loading out. There's those sweet, sweet DDGs. 918 bushels plus 760 is how much was in that bin. It's just over 1,600 bushels. About 100 bushels more than what I was figuring. So that ended up being over $12,600. That's pretty good. When we were coming through here yesterday, I told Dad that, you know, whenever you go to those Bath and Body shops where they sell like the scented candles in the mall, they always have those smells that nobody really cares for, like midnight dew or spring sunshine. You know, I'm a man. Give me smells that I want to smell, like straight up corn DDG. You know, it doesn't sound friendly, and that's why you'll never find it in a shop. But tell you what, if I went to a Bath and Body Works, I would buy that candle in a heartbeat. All right, we're heading home. As luck would have it, I managed to pass my CDL exam on the first try, and it was actually a lot easier than what I thought it was going to be. I'm sure it varies by experience, varies by tester. I was expecting it to be a lot more difficult than it was, but they split it up. So I had a Form B, so I had to cover from the driver's door to the rear of the truck. So I was, I think, being a little bit too thorough, because the tester asked me, he's like, how long did you study for this test? And I'm like, I don't know, like 6 hours. I mean, I've been doing a little bit of like periodic reading here and there, but the night before I started walking around the truck and just practicing doing a pre-trip exam and covering it, like everything front to back. And I went until like midnight, and I wanted Mom to get some sleep, so I came back home and went over the truck one more time in the morning, and yeah, I did fairly well. He said I did great on the pre-trip, and I did fine on the driving exam. Just don't ask me about railroad crossings, all right? Because he asked me to like imagine that I was coming up to a railroad crossing and what I do, and I just completely locked up because I was focusing pretty hard on driving, and I I just locked up. I'm like, he's like, all you do is you get into the right lane and you slow down, or not even slow down. He's like, you just check to make sure that nothing's coming. It's like, simple enough. So I think I accumulated 25 points, which over 31 will fail you on the driving exam. And I got everything on the pre-trip except for, I think I had 10 things that I missed, which I didn't think, I was kind of worried that I failed it, but he's like, no, he's like, that's great. He's like, no, he's like, that is really good. So everything panned out. So I'm going to the DMV on the next Monday to get my actual CDL. The DMV is only open a couple days a week, so I got to go there with my information and whatnot and actually get my license. So I'm not doing any hauling until I get my license itself. The instructor told me, you know what, he's like, just don't, because if you get pulled over and the cop looks at your learner's permit and you're driving alone, he's like, they'll be like, so are you driving on your farm or are you doing this or that? So he's like, it's just not worth it, just wait. So that's what I'm doing. But anyway, I just wanted to share that news with you guys. If you haven't seen it already, everything panned out. That's a lot of stress off our backs, so now we can start focusing on the wedding, which is now less than a month away. So yeah, that's exciting. So with that, thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to check out all of our other videos. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat. All how farms work. And with that, we'll see you next time.